Brian here, Expert Dojo. It is 8:30 in the morning somewhere in the world, especially here in Southern California, where I have the privilege of live streaming from. Now, as most of you know, if not all of you know, I only talk about two things ever on this live stream. And the objective of the live stream is so that entrepreneurs who are interested in growing the right way have proficiency in both things, right? One of the things that I'll talk about is marketing. Actually, I probably spent 80% of the time talking about marketing. The other thing I talk about is investment. Now, because we've invested in over 300 companies, and because I work with those investments, know what's happening within the companies, know the challenges they're facing, know the good stuff, the bad stuff, and everything in between, I am pretty well placed to be able to do that. And I try and share with you each week when I come in what's happened the previous week, both with founders that are breaking through and also with regards to stuff that's just happening, and also founders that are not breaking through as well, right? The second thing is obviously marketing, investment, marketing, investment, marketing, investment. They're always switch between them. As a founder, you have to have an understanding of investment. Like what we always say to our founders is, don't have a reliance on investing, but have enough of an understanding about how the game works that you play the game properly. Actually, many of the things that relate to marketing also relate to investment as well. When we talk about marketing, and Apoorv will come on and he's going to speak about how do you build a great brand? What does that brand look like? How do you make sure that people perceive you the right way? How do you then approach companies that you can actually get the right customers that will help you build that brand? All of that great stuff. That's the same with investors. And last week, while I was on with Scott over in Black Dog, we talked specifically about how do you make investors listen to you when there is so much noise out there. And actually, ironically, even in the world of venture capital, for venture capitalists, i.e. general partners, to raise money from limited partners, it's exactly the same. It's no good saying anymore, I'm a venture capitalist. We've got a thesis that we invest from pre-seed to seed to Series A, and we have the best thesis that's in the market. No, there's thousands of VCs that are doing exactly the same thing. LPs want to hear something special. They want to hear something they haven't heard before. It's the same for you. Just having a cybersecurity, an AI, a bot, a product, a medtech, whatever your company or product is, just having that and saying we are the best is not enough. You have to be very specifically speaking to the return on investment that an investor is going to get, in the same way as when you sell a customer. When you sell to a customer, you have to sell the customer on the transformative impact, the return on their investment that they're going to make. It's the same thing. And we're going to talk a lot about that today. Now, as all of you know, I've been working a lot on one of our companies. We layered in private equity to Expert Dojo in the last couple of months. And the idea was we have the acceleration program that allows us to be able to get into companies at the right price to be able to get a return. We have the warrants that allow us to be able to support the founders for a longer period of time and be able to get a return. Is a equity piece. Why have we done that? Because of what I just need to see, that you're doing something different, something separate from what the entire market is doing, so you can show that you are of value, so that we can show that we're of value. And on that point, the first company that we leaned in very heavily on is Matchbook AI. Matchbook AI, great company, makes data more truthful, makes data more clear, makes data matching better. And so imagine getting data from Dun & Bradstreet or Moody's or anybody else. That data has got inaccuracies in it. Matchbooks fixes the inaccuracies as much as they can. Great, great, great company, right? Last week, we have been going back in and saying, what's the conversion ratio of all of the partners, the resellers that are selling us to the market? And we started to speak to the customers or speak to those resellers and say, tell us, what do you think of us? And at the beginning, they say, you guys are great. You guys are awesome. You're doing the right thing. But then as we dig in and we ask questions like, but why, how many inquiries do you get? How many do you pass to us? What's the reason for the delta in the middle? It turns out that actually some of them have got separate things that is stopping them, that is impeding them from being able to push us forward. And so we've started recreating multiple documents which make it very simple for them to see the transformative benefit and impact that they will have. Okay. And so everything that I'm working on right now with Matchbook is changing the colors, the look, the feel for how the customer feels today. Why? Because the company started 6, 7 years ago. It was a very different brand feel in that time. Today, the brand feel is very different for a high tech company. What else? The actual logo, the look and feel of that, the messaging on how the messaging comes out. It starts with the suppliers and then works its way out. So I think we're going to continue this conversation. I would rather bring in a greater expert than myself into this so we can actually dig in a little bit deeper. But I just want to start this with one comment. Don't be afraid to continually change your colors, your messaging, your look, your feel, your logo, and even your name. Precede seed. Nobody knows you. Nobody cares. It's okay. And you haven't worked out your horizon 3 yet. And all of these things that fit inside your brand should always be continually evolving to take you to that horizon 3. And remember, that horizon 3 is that transformative impact that happens but can only start to happen after you've built a product, learned from the customer, and become exceptionally good at what you're doing. Okay, that is quite enough for me. Let's bring in a true expert in the space and bring you to the show. Great to see you. Thank you for joining us. Apoorv, we're going to talk about brand marketing and everything beautiful, right?
Yes, let's see. The usual flop, but let's make something fun out of it, right?
Yeah, let's make something fun out of it. I like it. Would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself? I know you have got almost 2 decades in the space. You know, you work with founders all the time right now, but you come from a very rich background of branding, marketing, super marketing, and everything really that gets product effectiveness to market. And just share a little bit, and then we're going to dig in and maybe we'll look at some specific examples about how we can help some of these folks grow their companies.
Sure. No, thank you for having me. Really excited and good morning to you and whatever time zone everybody is coming and joining us today. Hi, everyone. A little bit about myself. Look, one word, curious. That's what I have been since I was a child. All of us, when we are kids, we are curious. I just continued being curious for my entire life until today. Marketing is an output as a channel for somebody who can be as curious as they want. So it's great to be a marketer when you're as curious as someone like me. But look, I've been around places, always tried to do things which are completely unrelated to each other. So if you see my career trajectory, there's one thing that I always do that I never repeat the same industry again. I always try and shift an industry because it makes me supremely uncomfortable on day one, but it allows me to use all of my expertise that I've picked up along the years and try my hand at a new problem. And being an operator like myself for close to 2 decades, it's almost like being a VC in an operator's role because that's what VCs do, right? They meet a lot of people, they see a lot of challenges. I've lived those challenges and solved them one by one through my entire career. And I am while you see marketing, brand, all the nice, fluffy stuff, like I said on my resume, but I'm a hardcore consumer, tech, product, and a salesperson. I really believe a great marketer is somebody who has spent time on ground, had the same food as their customers eat and breathe the same air around them, and that's what's built my foundational thinking so far. So I'm very comfortable being in a marketer's skin because I talk the language of the customer that they would want to hear from the end of it. So spend time in every industry which has gone through tremendous shift and changed the fabric of the ecosystem. So I was part of the mobile data revolution in India. India is now the second biggest market after China around the world for mobile data usage. That was with Vodafone. Built the e-commerce, the foundational e-commerce setup in Flipkart, and then was part of the tech and the premiumization revolution in India with Apple, and tried my hand at the toughest industry that there can be in India, which is education and AI. And decided to take a break, but it's been a phenomenal roller coaster for me the last 4 to 5 months now, working with quite a few startups, helping them out primarily with their branding and GTM problems. And yeah, here we are.
Yeah, you could argue that AI and education is really the front lines of the battlefield in the world
Right,
today, and it actually
right,
just shows how it shows how difficult and complicated a problem this is, because before you fix it, it causes much worse problems. Like half the kids right now are using ChatGPT to do their
right.
essays and to do their work. Like they're not becoming experts at anything except how to use ChatGPT, which is
Yeah,
creating like a drug-like reliance on them. None of the teachers know how to do ChatGPT, so they have no clue what's going on. And at the same
right.
time, to get new technology into the education system is like trying to get an elephant through the eye of a needle. It's so you have this really, really interesting dichotomy in ed tech, which actually is such an amplification of everything that's happening in every other area, because this stuff sounds so easy. But saying, well, we're going to create AI for attorneys and everybody's going to have their own attorneys. Well, not really. It's not, it doesn't really work like that. It's not that you have suddenly this person who's saying, hey, Brian, I'm going to tell you now what you should do in your litigation case today. And
Right,
so it's definitely the wonderful thing and the terrible thing about the world today is that the speed of complication has become faster than ever before. It's not even the speed of
right.
change now, it's the speed of complication where we were. Okay, but I want to go back and I want to talk about two really important pieces that you brought out. And the first
Mhm.
one, let's start with, is sales and marketing, and that to do marketing properly, you have to be in sales. Very interesting, because very few people in marketing have been in sales. Most people in marketing went from college or went from something to
Right.
becoming an SEO specialist, to becoming a blog specialist, becoming a PPC specialist. And suddenly they're like sitting in a place and they're really just kind of mathematicians of sorts, amateur mathematicians that are just trying to work out algorithms and continually working out algorithms. Speak a little bit more. I'm a hardcore sales guy, like principally from the beginning. All I am is sales. That's all I do.
Right,
And I'm an
right.
okay marketer. But I think being hardcore at sales actually means I have a much higher bar with what being a great marketer looks like. So it's interesting. I agree with you, but a lot of people in marketing would say they're separated. It's church and state, sales and marketing. So speak a little bit to that for us, please.
Sure. So I think that's where I will cue in towards this concept of storytelling, which is something that, brings the art as a layer on top of what you acquired in sales. So here's my POV, right? You and I absolutely on the same page. If a person doesn't understand sales, or let me put it this way, the mechanics of how sales works, or let's just demystify sales. What does it mean? It means transactional equation between a buyer and a seller.
Yeah.
Until you're able to do that, you're never going to be an outcome-led marketer. Let that sink in a bit. You can still be a great marketer. You can be a creative marketer. You can make beautiful looking campaigns, but all of them will fall flat on their face if there is no outcome. That's the difference between what most people graduate and you see in marketing. And you're right, like most people do a fancy MBA, come out of the school, they get into marketing. And the classic thing is a lot of people get agencies on board and they feel good about themselves by virtue of great creative work around them. But the real outcome of sales for any company to pay you salary, you need to be outcome oriented, right? There are very few companies and very few roles, and it's not like they don't exist. Roles like creative, art, design, like the hardcore work that happens at Apple with the beautiful creatives that you see, they're really talented people. It is not that you have to give them sales targets, but those are skill sets at a larger combination which completely result into an outcome. So a true cross-functional marketing person is somebody who understands the basics of commercial relationships and transactions. I'll give you a small example. I spent a large part of my initial career in sales in telecom industry. Now, in telecom, what happens in India, unlike the US, you can actually buy a SIM card of a retail shop, the same shop where you can buy a phone hardware from. So, like an AT&T or Verizon, it's not like you buy into a contract. It's a prepaid market. You just go on the counter. Tomorrow, I decide to shift from an AT&T to Verizon. I can do it. There is no strings attached. In that kind of a scenario, it is not just a two-party combination. Like you're not just a brand talking to a customer. There is a retailer angle also involved with it because your retailer is the one that the customer walks to. And the brand, while they're talking via media to the customer, the decision and the influence maker is actually the retailer
Mm.
because they go and ask somebody, hey, can you tell me which is the best phone or which is the best SIM card to buy? So you might have seen a beautiful creative about a phone, but when you go to the retail shop, it is actually the commercial offers and the packages that are attractive enough to close the deal with the customer. So only somebody who has spent time on the ground understanding what language does the retailer speak to the customer, what's in it for retailers. Imagine that's the thing that we talk in marketing, right? Like the one question that you have to answer for your customers is what's in it for me. The same way there is a what's in it for me question to be answered at every level in this chain of handshakes, until from the brand to the customer. And if you understand and only understand well, then you can create an overarching brand campaign, which is where you use all your creative and magical art skills, but also real lower funnel communication, which talks about offers, deals. So the upper funnel is between the brand and the customer is about why me, and the mid to lower funnel is about why me now. This combined helps you close that deal with your customer, and only somebody who spent and dirtied their pants on the ground will know why that works and how that works.
So in the example that I was giving earlier on about the data provider being a great reseller for the data cleaner, which is what Matchbook is, we had one of the
Yes.
data providers very, very slow at passing over referrals. And they had conversations, marketing conversations with all of those, with the people, three or four of the people inside the data provider's company. And in each one of the conversations, everybody's like, we're trying and we're sent it out, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then one person who was a salesperson got on the phone with one of the other people who was quite friendly. And that person said, look, nothing's happening. There has to be something else. Help us. We don't want to waste your time by asking you the same question like every 2 or 3 weeks and having you feel bad about the answer. Just tell the truth. Like the truth will set us all free because then we can fix it. And so it
Right.
turned out that that organization's had massive layoffs 3 times in the last year or so. And all of the salespeople were concerned about was just making their individual quota so they did not get fired that month. That was all they cared about. But the
Right.
Matchbook solution would add another 40% on top of the revenue that those people would have gotten. But they don't know this because Matchbook aren't even on their list. And
Hmm.
so the marketing team, led by the sales team, were then able to build out a one pager which just said, look, you're leaving 40% of your new sales revenue on the table. Here's where you're leaving it. And then it's like, here's an average customer of $250,000. This is the additional data that you would have managed to get, $30,000. This is the referral ongoing revenue that you would have got, $45,000. This is the fact that you're going to keep the customer for longer because your matching is going to be better. So just based on a 10% increase there, another $25,000. And so then the thing adds up and it's like, this is 40% extra for nothing, nothing,
Right.
zero to do. And then underneath it, qualitative benefits underneath it. And I think to your point, we sometimes get we get very confused between beautiful and valuable. And by
Right.
moving it to a sales centric approach, what happens is all we care about is the outcome, which means that something that doesn't look that nice or necessarily look that nice, but it gets the point across. If it's just like big font, 120 words on the middle of white, on the middle of a black page that says, boom, this is how it works. So, yeah, I want to dig in on that because I think it's very, very, very valuable. And we all remember the early Apple ads, even the ones where like the hammer was breaking through and the black and white adverts and everything else, massively iconic because they understood it was a very noisy world about computers and what they did and how they worked. They were selling to people who didn't understand that because it was brand new and it was all coming out at the same time. And I'm talking about like Apple II now really versus than Apple One. Like
Right.
Apple when Steve Jobs came back again, and
Yeah.
he used his sales experience to really get the message out. And that message became you should feel very comfortable about spending twice as much money that you would spend on any other computer because this is not a computer. This is a
Right.
new life that you've wanted to have for your entire life. Like only someone on the ground could have come up with a messaging like this.
Yes, that is exactly what I meant is after you've built the foundational thinking and understanding of the consumer mental model with your sales understanding, then you sprinkle the magic of storytelling on top. So
Yeah,
the example that you gave is how can I tell this story when I know the consumer problem and the need, but in an extremely cluttered environment? And look, you're talking about the Apple ads back in the day when there were very few brands doing creative and media buys. Right now, in the digital performance marketing first world, it is crazy the amount of noise out there.
yeah,
So now, just being sales led and outcome led is not enough. You also need to differentiate yourself. You need to think differently and you need to communicate your message in the most relatable, simple, and the feel good way, right? So when you're able to understand how to make your consumers feel the right way on what your brand means to them in a consistently long way, then you're able to create a magical combination of great commercials and stay-led bound foundation and great storytelling, which is what combines together and gets to consumer to finally come to you and stay with you. So I think in today's startups world, especially, it's about breaking through the clutter, choosing the right messages, choosing the right media channels. The kind of startups that I work with, we don't even do these crazy spray and pray marketing across channels. You don't have to buy that Super Bowl ad. You don't have to spend those $100 million in digital performance marketing. Sometimes the greatest examples of storytelling, even in the modern world, are about being absolutely simple and relatable, where the consumer says, oh, yes, my problem is solved, and I can trust this brand to solve that problem.
yeah. I saw an advert that came out from American Eagle jeans, which I don't know if you saw.
Sydney
But
Sweeney one.
it's Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah, see, that was such a clutter breaker, right? Very, very, very cool campaign where everybody is trying to shift the way, to this modern woke, showing the different modules, but getting the good old American looks back into the books, and it was a super hit for them and their stock price.
It was a super hit for them. And so it
Correct.
was a little bit brave because they're not silly
Yeah.
people, right? They know the
Right.
impact of something like that, but they were so clever. And what I
Right.
didn't realize was that, like, after people started coming at them, and for anybody who hasn't seen the Sydney Sweeney advertisement for American Eagle, just Google it. You can find it. It was a very, very, very clever advertisement. And you don't need to be American. By the way, American Eagle were kind of in trouble before they did this. They didn't have an awful lot
Yes.
going on. I,
The
I
last campaign was pretty bad.
it was pretty bad, and you even know the last campaign. I don't even know the last campaign. Like that's where American Eagle are in my jeans category, right? And
Yeah.
so they
Right.
came out with this ad, which was really to celebrate everything that they saw American, right? It was very
Yes.
interestingly timed in Trump country, which meant that they knew
Mm.
that they wouldn't be decimated
Sentiment.
for it. They
Yes.
didn't
Correct.
say anything which was inherently bad, but they just used a little bit more sexuality in the ad, and they used a little bit more, they used slightly more provocative words, but only if you take those words out of context, right? Really,
Yes.
the general oversight of it was America is going back to being very American. This lady here is what we see as the perfect wearer of the jeans. She looks great. She looks amazing. She's got great jeans. They're like, it's, and they did the play on the jeans. But what was so brilliant about what they did was all of the proceeds went to a charity. That was
Oh,
so
I didn't know that.
yeah.
Wow.
So that was so incredible. And the charity was her charity, which I believe is abused moms or
Wow.
abused women, or abused wives or something. But it was like, it was a really good charity. And so she's like,
Yeah.
well, I don't care. Like, this is great. Keep talking, boys and girls. And so
Yeah.
really what we're both saying to everybody listening to this is you have to be heard. You have to do
Yes.
something that doesn't, we're not talking like go too far over the edge, but like Liquid Death did it in an incredible way. American Eagle, when you look at the ads, you'll be like, okay, cool. And you don't have to do a TV ad for these things. You can do
Yeah.
adverts and push them out to the market, like the very first Dollar Shave Club ad. I remember it really well. It was a YouTube video. And as soon as they saw there was good traction behind it, then they started putting some real money behind it because it was providing an ROI where people were buying Dollar Shave Club subscriptions because they really liked the ad that was being built on the back of it. And so every single thing that everybody else is doing is not the thing that you should be doing because, to
Right.
your point, there's too many everybody else's, right?
Yes. No. So one of the things I tell in the first meetings I have with startup founders is be unashamedly authentic. You have to be so shameless in what you do, in the way you build your brand. Be yourself. Like if you it's funny, it probably sounds like simple, relatable English, but it's not. When you sit down with startup founders, they're under so much pressure because one, there's and don't think of the large big companies, American Eagles and Apples of the world. I'm genuinely telling you what you see in day out. Startup founders raise funds, and they're completely under pressure how to use them the right way. So the first mental model they start with is, oh, these are the acceptable ways of marketing. This is what has worked in my category. These are great examples of current campaigns around me. So they start with these researched playbooks that they think are the right way to do these things. So often than most times, I go into the meeting room, I put all of them away, and I ask them, what do you feel you stand for? Forget everything else, forget what's right. You want to use a language which you think is not right for the consumer, but just tell me what you feel you want to stand for. Case in point, I can't share the name of a startup I'm working with. It's an Indian brand. We're trying to build a very unique e-commerce solution in India. And trust me, e-commerce in India is now 2 decades, almost like more than a decade old, right? But we're trying to build a uniquely Indian platform for India which celebrates being Indian. And I told them, celebrate that. How can you bring out yourself in the most unique way, even if 80% of the audience laugh at you? The 20% who feel like, oh my God, these guys are for real, will be louder than those 80% and will eventually take over all of the messaging and the voice. I mean, imagine in the agency client debriefing with American Eagles agency when they would have first proposed this, they were casting a blonde woman in 2025. They would have gone like, isn't that done already many,
Yeah.
many decades back? But the question was, this is you. This is America. This is what the first image of an American woman comes in your mind if you're asked to describe and draw one.
Yeah, and it's different for different people. I think for an American jeans company, it's great
Yes,
to pull out
exactly.
a blue-eyed, blonde-haired girl because American jeans has always been that. That's their culture. But if you were doing a makeup brand, like for example, a makeup
Yes, then
brand,
you have to be
wouldn't
inclusive.
you wouldn't do a blonde hair blue because that's
Correct,
not your people. That's nowhere like your
correct,
people, right? And
correct,
so
correct.
you have to be like yours. I also think with the Indian thing, today that it becomes almost a safer thing to do. But what would be cool is 5 years ago to be that, right? It's cool to do it
Yes,
today, right? But 5 years ago, it would have been before the bleeding edge. Right now, it's the
yes,
bleeding edge.
correct.
I actually, it's funny. I was on a panel in. I actually just did a TEDx talk in India, in Kerala, and the TEDx talk was
Awesome.
called "The Kidnapping of the Indian Dream," and the entire talk is about how India are making such a huge mistake copying America. And what's going to happen
Totally.
is they're going to get a few more unicorns, but the entire culture of India will be destroyed. Destroyed. There's nothing left.
Yes, correct,
Every single
correct.
thing that any Indian ever liked and loved and was a part of, you can forget about it. It's gone because what you're doing is you're swapping out this
Core.
yeah, like I went down the whole road of guest is God and inclusiveness and karma
Totally,
and the
totally.
order of
Yeah.
things and I said if you want to swap that out, like you're swapping out a thing that kind of make sure you're nice to your neighbor. Like, even
Mm.
if only for the reason that you don't want to come back as a cockroach, right? Like,
Right.
even for that
Correct.
reason only, that's a great way to live. And you're swapping
Right.
that out for a zero net sum game. That's it.
Mm.
That's the
Right.
swap. And so you're going to
Yes.
get a few more unicorns, but everything that you loved is suddenly gone. And so
Yes.
right now, that is a great time for that conversation. And then I lead into that. Like, I was on a panel before and somebody said, "Hey man, we should be more, we should try and get, more American VCs and more American money." And I was like, "Well, haven't you been colonized enough? Like why do you want to do and I'm Irish, so I can kind of say this stuff.
Right.
But why do you want to do that? Like, you have the greatest prime minister and leader of any country in the world. You have the greatest innovation of any country in the world. You have like 25,000 of the smartest kids coming out of IIT every single year. What the hell is wrong with you? Like, why do
Correct.
you want stuff from other places? So I think it's really, really, really powerful to be able to say the things that you believe in the
Right.
knowledge that you're not abusing one group of people. Like, you can't abuse people and be bad to people.
Correct.
That's not part of the rules. But the part of the rules are, I truly believe that. And even though that is not necessarily an acceptable conversation to have, it is
Yeah.
absolutely the appropriate conversation to have for a VC who's coming into the country who wants to be aggressive with authenticity. And so
Yes. Yes.
so your whole point is true. And everybody needs to do this. You play by
Right.
the rules, you die, right?
Right.
You have to create your own rules and really understand not just your reason for doing this stuff, but also the transformative impact for your customers. And what is it that you're doing that's so different that's going to tie
Right.
into that? I love that. Have you any more good examples on that area? Or are there other areas that you really like? And it might be the brand, the messaging, the colors, like real differentiators that you see breaking through now that you haven't seen before.
Yeah, so look, what's happening now is there is a lot of noise on social, right? Especially with a short video format, completely immersing and taking over your small screen. It's very difficult for a brand to stay longer and get more time with their audience. So what's really working well is we're actually going back to the era of simplicity. Uh, that whole people in their feed, like think about it subconsciously, if you're browsing your TikTok feed or any feed, the simplest of the simplest creatives which tell you what you need to do in the quickest way possible are the ones you will actually hang around and consume. The moment you see noise or you see five different promises coming at you from brands, or the same format of every starting with, did you know that you could do immediately you're taken off by some. You always now subconsciously think that somebody wants something else, like there's an ulterior motive to this video, and hence you just think of it as an ad, then you move on. So what I'm seeing as a trend, and I'm personally working on a lot of its startups, is how can you just create conversations. People are craving simple conversations right now. One of the industries I'm personally passionate about is health. Very, very true in that space. Instead of people trying to sell you this protein powder, that mix, and that, if you just have conversations with your audiences about what you want to solve for. So, going back to the two, three things we discussed earlier, be authentic, have a conversation, and trying to reduce the noise, but just try and have a conversation about a consumer problem that they're deeply concerned about. It could be as simple as, if you're losing hair, you've tried these three things. Here are the things I tried, but this is what you might want to try versus trying to promise something. So I think consumers are valuing a lot more crystal clear communications now than they were earlier. And brands, especially, brands have moved very, very quickly, especially the D2C companies, the startups that are operating in from markets like Latin America, Asia, these markets, there the consumers are looking at you for genuine, authentic promises. So remember, unlike the big companies, like imagine the Unilevers or the P&Gs, when they used to release the products, they had to work hard on building brands. Like the first time you use a Tide, they had to build Tide very, very closely related to cleaning clothes. But the brand and the packaging sold a lot more. Now products are being sold on trials because a large part of growth for D2C companies is in customer acquisition and then engagement. So during the acquisition phase, consumers care about authentic promises. So if you promise something, let's say if you're selling a packet of hair loss gummies, it could be something else, it could be a cream that helps you with your skin. If you make a authentic promise to the consumer, and it works for them, it may work for 60-70% of them, not 100% of them. That's when these customers will talk more about you, and then there is this social chain that follows and it results in more and more sales. And I'm seeing this trend more and more with every single successful D2C brand that you can think of, obviously combined with all the other things we discussed. Keep it simple, keep it real, keep it attractive, be like yourself, celebrate who you belong, which country you belong to, which place you belong to. So everything in all of that falls in place together.
Oh, I love that. And so it's clean and it's simple and it's bright. And I also think as well, the market is so depressing right now. If you'd have said to me 5 years ago, what do you sell on? I'd say I love fear. I embrace fear. I
Right.
wake up, I go to bed at night like hugging fear, and I wake up in the morning
Yes.
loving it even more, but not today because there's too much fear in the world. And so actually selling on hope and optimism, I think, is also going to be a very new emerging brand feel that's going to come out, because I don't think consumers can take any more fear.
No, I'll give you another example. A project that I worked on last month. I can't share the name of the company, but is one of the world's largest obesity prevention drugs manufacturers, and the campaign is going to hit now very very soon. Uh, when I went into the room, the marketing team there told me this is how we've done marketing in the last 2 years, and I saw every single creative. And the one thing that stuck to me was obesity is a disease. It's your problem. Solve it. And I'm like, guys, can you calm the F down? That think about that person. That person is not fat by choice. Fine, they ate a little extra. Maybe it's genetics. Maybe it's depression. It could be many things. But the thing is that they already have so many fingers pointing at them. Even though you feel like you're trying to help them by telling them this is a problem, they know it's a problem. Instead, let's shift gears and talk to them about why they can now make a choice and where they want to be. So it's not about where the consumer, and this is an example I'm telling you from my project,
Yeah.
applies to every single thing. The consumer doesn't care what happened in the past. If, as a brand, you can show them out of the 10 possible directions their life can lead to, how does your brand take them to point A versus point B versus point Z? That is what will take you forward, and not exactly like you said 5 years back, where, oh, this can happen, and you're worry and fear, and then you're consuming it not out of brand love and hope, but out of a lack of options available. So
Yeah.
consumers are no more powered here, and now they want more optimist brands versus the pessimist ones.
Yeah, and please listen to this. Like, this is something which is very emerging. It's so emerging that people haven't even started talking about it yet. But those people who build, those companies who build really optimistic brands to show a better life, a better future, are the companies that are going to build the strongest loyalty for people who are coming through. And the other thing which I'm starting to use more and more right now are gimmicks. Like, if I use an example of toothpaste being flavored for the first time, like, it was clear back in the day that toothpaste was good for your teeth. But they're
Right.
like, you put it on, you don't put it on, you buy it, you don't buy it. But then they put mint. The first folks who put mint flavoring into toothpaste and made them. It's not that they made it taste delicious. They would have put Coca-Cola flavor in if they wanted to make it delicious. They made it feel like it was actively cleaning your teeth. You notice how that flavor, as you're brushing your teeth,
Right.
it's not a
Right.
flavor you go, oh my gosh, I want some more of that. It's a flavor where
Right.
you think, my teeth are clean. And
Right.
so that was a gimmick, which was a beautiful gimmick to make people feel that a product was 10 times better than the next nearest product, not because of
Yes.
anything else other than the way that they made your mouth feel after your teeth were
Right.
cleaner, not because of the ingredients. And I think we're going to
Yes.
see more and more of that these days, using different tactics to be able to amplify the effects that are already there, but they might be clouded out by other orgs.
That's a great example. Yes.
I love that. Hey, I want to bring up a couple of questions. So
Sure.
we have Steve Jobs, right? This is right down your road. We're rebuilding Apple today in the AI area. What would you do differently in marketing and storytelling?
He would not talk about AI. As much as I've read about Steve Jobs, and as much as Apple tried to do their best, uh, look, I'm in no place to comment what Apple would do and what Steve Jobs would do. This is as good as your guess as mine. But I think what people like Steve Jobs, and I've been fortunate to work with a couple of other people in my career who reminded me of Steve and what he stood for, never chase the crowd. So what's happening in AI, and I can share with my own experience in education, which we started out talking, right? When I joined this last company I was in, I was given a debrief by my product head about how great the AI tool that they were building. And this was right 2023 December, right in the peak of OpenAI coming in, new releases every night. And I actually said, okay, let's talk about AI. And everybody said, we have to talk about AI. We have to talk about AI. When I went to the consumer, and the consumer for education is a typical tier two Indian, like you went to Kerala, you might remember when you cross the roads from the airport, that kind of a place where students are studying on their phone. When I went to speak to them and their parents, and they didn't care about AI. All they cared about is, and the questions they asked me was, is my son going to get an admission into that college he wants to because of you or no? Remember, we started out by talking about outcome led marketing. Steve was the epitome of solving consumer problems and telling them in the most beautiful, artsy way and not confusing them with the tech.
Yeah,
The whole company is built on the most sophisticated technology that humankind can think of.
yeah.
Even today, just forget the AI world. Steve was all about, and he would, even today, if he were alive, talk about what AI can do for you versus here's AI powered this, AI powered that. He would probably, and I will go probably, get a lot of heat for saying this, he would probably reject the Apple Intelligence name altogether. He would not even talk about
I'm
that.
I'm with you, and I think this amplifies it even more. It's like with AI and mixed reality coming in, what would brand look like in 2030? I just want to add on top of your point and then see what you think here. I don't
Yeah,
think a single person has ever woken up in the morning saying, I wish I had more AI in my life, right? That's not
exactly.
what's happening,
Exactly.
right? What's
Right.
happening is there's a ton of hype coming through from the large AI companies that are pushing out AI, and ChatGPT is smarter than any other technology we've had before, so that more people are using it. Like, that's it, right? But Apple were
Yes.
built on the basis of one thing and one thing, which is like to bring something totally different and totally beautiful and something that people couldn't do without to the world,
Yes.
right? And then it
Yes.
was about making people feel special. There's nothing about AI, mixed reality, or anything that makes people feel special. It's the opposite. Like, the more we talk about robot girlfriends, robot boyfriend, robot companions, let's call them in a nice woke world that we're in. And like, let's talk about and AI bots, which are like, the more we talk about it, the more we speak about is lack of any empathy whatsoever. Where is the opportunity in this world? I actually think when Waymo really push out and it gets put into Lyft and Uber and everything else, and 90% of people travel without someone in a car, I actually think the upsell will be a driver who knows history, a driver who knows geography, a driver who knows the area.
Right.
I think a comedian, a singer who's in the front of the
Yes.
car. Like, I think the upsell will be a human being that
Human.
shows
Yes.
love, empathy, and things like that. And I think if anybody wants to like hold on to something that can separate you from the competition, it's that everybody else is going to a no person, no employee world that just gives answers for specific questions and will help in no cases, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Building a great back end of customer service, you're going to separate yourself from everything.
Yes, I completely agree. This morning, I had an issue with my American Express card, and I called the customer care. And I'm a 9-year-old card holder, and for the first time in the last 2 years, a human answered my call in the first two rings. And I checked. I actually checked this morning. Am I speaking to a person? That human interaction for me, I'm not going to leave American Express forever. But I do have a quick 10-second thought, to double up on the last two questions. Look, I have some free advice for everyone who's listening in today, and especially people who are building in the AI space. My advice is equate technology to magic. If you really think about it from a first principle point of view, all these years as tech has evolved more and more, the emotion that it has created in humans is, oh wow, that almost feels like magic. Like when you could take a first time when you could do a phone call on with your hand without a cord attached to it, or the first time you could send a message from one person to another without them standing in it. Technology always feels like magic. There is no better time now with AI when it really feels like magic. So if Steve were today, I mean, that's one example of a lesson I take from him and I try and apply it to the startups I work with. If you're working in the space of AI, try and simplify this magic that you're creating for your user in the most humanly possible way. Trust me, magic for your brand will happen.
I love that. There's actually a very interesting last question here,
Sure.
because it's not actually as binary as the question makes itself out to be. If you had to kill
It's
performance
not.
marketing
Yeah,
or brand marketing for your startup, which one would you keep or why? I'll give an answer, but then I would love if you can finish it. I was going to say finish it off, and then as soon as I say that, okay, we'll fit in one more question after this. So
that's okay. Sure.
I'll throw in a thought on it, and then I will throw in no thought on the last one, and let you finish off on the last one. So my answer, I remember I had a startup about 10 years ago or 7 or 8 years ago that were selling soaps, and they were soaps for your genitals. And they had really, really good branding. It was very funny, very
Hmm.
irreverent, and they just did a great job on it. And they were getting 3-1 in their performance marketing. And so if it was 8, 10 years ago and it was that company, they're already getting 3-1 in performance marketing. I want to spend more
Yes.
money on performance marketing. Like there's no, sure, would I feel really sad that I could never touch my brand again? I would, but I'm going to ride that horse for as far as I can ride that horse. If it works for 100,000 spend a month, I'm going to spend 500,000. If it works for 500,000, I'm going to spend 1 million. I'm just going to spend what I got to spend to make a ton of money. But if today, which is more likely that it's actually a return of zero point 0.2 versus every dollar spent. There is no choice. Like you have to build
Great.
the areas that will improve your conversion. There is no choice. And so I don't know many brands that can kill it on their own with performance marketing. But I suppose if there was one, then that's okay. But there probably isn't, which means you don't have a choice. You got to go for brand. Fair?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely agree. So I'll again, I'm a first principle thinker, so I make it quick on first principles for the question. Look, the obvious answer, and I think the person who asked the question knows the answer themselves. Like it's you can't kill one or the other. It's not linear. Like consumers jump between places all the time. But you need to understand one thing, right? Performance actually helps the user to make a decision when they're in that journey. And in the digital age, when they're actually making a transaction online, you can't not do performance marketing. Most startups, 99.9% of the startups actually start and survive for the longest time only on performance marketing. But exactly like you said, if you miss out on brand, then you're always fighting a headless war. You're never going to be separating yourself from the others if you don't invest in brand. In fact, this is the debate I had with my team all the time. Brand results will start showing much later. So the more you delay it, more and more difficult it becomes. Unless and until you are creating a completely new category of your own. Imagine when the first Apple Watch launched. Apple did not have to do any performance marketing, I can guarantee you, even if they chose to. If you're creating a completely new category, you don't need to do performance because you're creating enough curiosity and pull for your brand so that you don't have to spend additionally on trying to build on paid. But almost everything than anything that we're doing right now, you're taking some share from somebody else. And whenever you're taking market share away from somebody, you have to invest in performance because you're relying on intent signals, existing intent signals, which is what the whole play of performance is. When you're creating new intent with your new brand, new category, then you can start off on brand marketing. Again, if the investor pressure is not on your head, but if you have to start showing number, then you have to start putting in money and performance.
Okay, I'm going to finish with the last question, and then I will ask Kishle to put up your details so everybody can contact you. I think this is a really nice one to finish on, actually.
Sure. So Shikant says if a founder can do one marketing experiment this year to set up long-term brand love, what should it be? Ah, good one. I
Yeah.
think the a lot of founders, but this is becoming a trend now. So I have to admit it's not a unique answer I'm giving. Founder-led brands are becoming a thing now around the world. Most founders, until maybe like about 2, 3 years back, were behind the scenes. They were never on camera. But right now, take pretty much all the big categories you can think of. It's the founder showing a demonstration of the product themselves, right from Mr. Beast to anybody else. And it's interesting. I was sitting with a venture capital firm last week, and their lead partner told me that nowadays they're seeing this trend that founders build a brand first, so their distribution is built, and then they introduce a product, which is why YouTubers, when they launch products, are so successful because their distribution is already built out. So I think the one experiment I would say each founder should invest in is build a demonstration of you consuming your product on camera repeatedly and consistently. I think it summarizes all of the things that we discussed so far.
Yeah.
One, it is you, unashamedly, authentically you. It is you are being honest with your user when you're saying something about your product to the user, and you're consistent because as a person, as a personality, you can't change. I mean, you are who you are. So you're not a casted actor for just one ad film. But I think beyond the other marketing that surrounds you as a flanked approach, I think founder-led brand marketing is something which
Yeah,
is very, very underdeveloped.
beautiful. And you're talking about personal brand, which is so
Yes.
powerful. Like people, I like Expert Dojo is led by personal brand. It was led by my brand at the beginning, and like I
Right.
always saw it that I had to build my brand, whether it was through the TEDx talk in the US, which was kidnapping the American dream, the TEDx talk
Right.
over in India, which is kidnapping the Indian dream, or any of the other things that I do. Like pretty soon we'll release a book out, but it'll be a book that would be released by me, by Expert Dojo, but really by me. And the idea is that you can't confuse this. And by the way, there's a quick downside to this, which I'll throw in as well. But like our job as founders is to be in servitude of our company.
Mm.
That's our job until the
Yes.
company is safe. It's a little bit like parents taking care of their
Yeah.
kids. Like once your
Correct.
kid gets to 17, 18, then it's not for you
Yes.
to be protecting your kid
I
anymore.
agree.
Now the kid has
I
to
agree.
take control of their own lives, right? But up to that
Yes.
moment, we got to help
Yes.
them. We got to make sure they don't fall, they don't get hurt. The only downside is like that founder who got caught in the company with his COO, and they were at the
Yeah.
concert, and suddenly like they're both
Correct.
married, but they're both at a
Correct.
concert and they're together, and then
Correct.
they get into trouble.
Correct.
Like, that would never happen before because people would be like, well, who the hell cares? But when you got $1 billion company that you have in servitude built up to become one of the most significant companies in the United States, now you are an influencer, you are a mini rock star, and that means
Yes.
that the bad comes with the good. So you got to be careful of what you say, where you say it, and who you say it to, because one wrong thing puts you in the poop.
Yeah, but I think you give the excellent example of a brand being like a child. As the child is growing up, it's you who goes to their school for their admissions. But when they're getting into college, university, it's them who show their face and what they're worth. I think as a founder, the maturity, and there are far too many startups right now who've reached that stage. So let's build our babies and let them fly once they're ready.
Okay, look, Divya, you're killing me here. Okay, last question, right? Because I like this because everybody is feeling the same pain. Because talking about branding,
Mm,
talking about marketing, talking about everything is one thing, but actually taking a product and getting it into the market and actually having people knowing what your product is like unbelievably important. I'll answer quick, you answer quick.
sure.
Kishley, let's get the details up there, please. Is Kishley there? I think Kishley. Yes, he is there. And he was so that everybody can contact you afterwards. For me, I love outbound. I think outbound calls, outbound emails, but not like mass emails. Nobody's reading mass emails. Most people are not even reading mass ads that are going out. You got to pick the biggest people in your market. You got to make sure those people know you. You got to give them reasons why they should know you. You have to lift your influence. If you're in the banking space, reach out to chairmen of banks, VPs of banks, other people's in banks. If you're in the technology space, make sure that the top technologists in the world know. Like you have to be, if you're not the hero in your own movie, then nobody wants to find the extra, right? They want to
Correct.
find Tom Cruise. So if you ain't
Yes.
Tom Cruise, then why the hell should people get to know you? So build up your personal brand so you're Tom Cruise, and then reach out to everybody around you so everybody wants to know you. Okay, last word to you.
Yes, I'm just going to make it quick. Look, definitely don't go for price cuts. It actually devalues your brands and damages it for the long term than while you're sacrificing for short term growth. But always do a product led story. Your brand should be built on materialistic product, which is actual touch and feel or a service. Build a product led story that you can stress test. The only way you can differentiate your brand, and I'm assuming you're talking about in the categories which exist already, is you go and make claims. That could be like, I can throw this mouse on the wall, nothing happens. It could be, we give you this that nobody else does. But the moment you're able to stress test your product story, your brand, and you get noticed.
Boom. Thank you, my friend. Apoorv, could
Awesome.
you please share your details? Normally, Kishley is pretty good at putting them up, but I haven't seen any. Ah, there we
Oh,
go.
there you go.
There we go. He was just waiting for the right time. Okay,
Yep.
beautiful. So that's how everyone can contact you. Thanks for joining us. We went a little bit longer today, but honestly, the content was great. So hopefully
Yeah,
everybody can get
obviously.
out there, get super aggressive, chase your brand, build your product, build your customer base. And if you're a venture backable founder, investors will find you because you're a fast growing company that investors want to invest in, period. It's that simple.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, my friend.
Okay.
To be continued.
Cheers, man. Have a good day and